I'm about to say something really crazy. Something that you might not understand right away. I hate the word happiness, or at least I did. And even more, I hate the phrase secret to happiness. To think that something as significant as my well being and fulfillment can be trivialized to one secret? What kind of idiot do you take me for? I would think to myself, with all the abstinence I could muster. And yes, my abstinence definitely played a role in my hatred of the word happiness and the phrase secret to happiness, but I knew there was more to it than that. So I started to get curious about happiness. I started to deliberately think about why I developed such an aversion to the word happiness to begin with, what it really means to be happy, and if happiness is even a virtue worth finding the secret to in the first place. So I started listening to other points of view on the subject, and you know what I found out? I do think happiness is a virtue. And in fact, I think that happiness is what I've been promoting through the expectation gaps all along. I just called it something different. I called it full potential or fulfillment. But how did I arrive at this conclusion? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. But first, let me describe to you what I used to picture when I thought of someone who believed in a secret to happiness, or at least what I used to picture. So she, and yes, my person is a she, and I'm endearingly calling her the hippy dippy dingbat. And maybe you will see why as I describe her a minute here. So she has long flowing hair, unstyled. It's only adorned by a ring of daisies around the crown of her head. Of course, she's smiling and humming as she dances along, and she seems to almost float through the air as she walks along, which is, of course, an optical illusion caused by the white, softly flowing, that's hard to say, softly flowing dress that she's wearing. The illusion is further enhanced by the fact that she's running through a perfectly green field. She's bouncing along on her bare feet with a few of her other hippy dippy dingbat friends. Where are they going? They have no idea, they don't know, and they don't care. They're just enjoying the moment, and they're going through life without a care in the world. And yeah, while this carefree display of happiness is beautiful, I'm not denying that, and a part of me does long to run through the field with my hippy dippy dingbat soulmates, another part of me, the louder part of me, has no desire to be a part of that world. And I have to say I'm a bit pretentious in that I actually think, what a meaningless, mundane existence it must be to feel nothing but joy all of the time. So now that I've probably offended you because maybe you are a hippy dippy dingbat, I want to be real clear about where my aversion to happiness came from. Because I realize that you're watching or listening to this because some part of you wants to find the secret of happiness. And I respect that. So my aversion isn't necessarily toward the desire to be happy. It's really created more by the idea of pursuing happiness. But why in the world would I feel this way to begin with? That's what I really wanted to know. So I started thinking about it. Why don't I feel the desire to blindly pursue happiness when it seems like so many other people do? And that's when I realized that being told to be happy or to find the secret of happiness actually feels like a personal attack to me for a couple of reasons. First of all, the sentiment, be happy, just feels fake to me. It feels like it's forced. It feels like I'm supposed to ignore all of the normal feelings that come along with being a human, like anger, sadness, disappointment, whatever. And that feels like a personal attack to me because I actually like feeling those feelings sometimes. What? Why would anyone like to feel anger or sadness or disappointment or melancholy or whatever kind? And the reason is because my core value is authenticity. And in my estimation, feeling all the feels is part of living an authentic life. Although most people would describe me, I think, as a happy person, I'm drawn to dark things. Like the music I listen to, I listen to mostly alternative metal music, but also just rock music and anything with very authentic lyrics and it evokes an emotion. Those are my favorite things to listen to. The shows I watch, I love dark comedies. I love shows that really show the feelings that people are going through, that really can portray their feelings. And, the books I read too, there's a dark undertone to everything that I'm drawn to. Because I like to gain an understanding of what makes people tick, and I like to understand the struggles that they are facing or that they have faced before. Which leads to the second reason that I did not appreciate the word happy. So, to me, it seemed like happiness doesn't fuel growth, which is my second core value. And it's not so much that I don't want to be happy or that I don't want to find the secret to happiness. It's more that I place a higher value on living a fulfilling life. And it always seems to me that sacrificing some level of happiness is part of the process of personal development. And I was willing to sacrifice that little piece. So I thought about all this, and now I had a handle on where my aversion to the word happy came from. Next, it was time to see what the professionals had to say about it, the scientists and the psychologists. And did they think that there was a secret to happiness? Yep, sure enough they did. But to really understand their message, we first need to talk about the actual definition of happy, because that's where I went next. And sure enough, some of the definitions that were put forth by Merriam-Webster, which is what the dictionary I tend to go to, some of their definitions describe the hippy-dippy dingbat that I just talked about. But then there are a couple of their definitions suggest that happiness is more in alignment with my core values than I had thought. So let's look at a couple of those. So definition 2 for Merriam-Webster of the word happy is notably fitting, effective, or well adapted. And I thought to myself, that sounds a bit like someone who has realized their full potential. And then Merriam-Webster definition 3a is enjoying or characterized by well-being and contentment. And that sounded a bit to me like being fulfilled. So these definitions made me think that happiness is the result of intentional living, and it's an idea that I've been promoting in every post that I write. So that led me to question, could I be seeking happiness without even realizing it? Yeah, I think I am. I think it's pretty obvious at this point that that's exactly what I've been doing. And that realization led me to my conclusion, to what you're here for, the secret to happiness. But I already gave you the answer. It's right in the title of this video or audio that you're listening to. You have to let go of the desire to be happy. Sure, okay, but what the heck does that mean? To understand the answer to that question, you need to know what natural and synthetic happiness are. So this is according to social psychologist Daniel Gilbert. And he says that natural happiness is the feels you feel when you get what you want. He didn't say the feels you feel, but he said it's when you get what you want. And synthetic happiness are the feels you feel when you don't get what you want, but you are satisfied nonetheless. And you're able to create your own happiness in any given situation. So basically you find the silver lining and you create your own happiness. And what people have found is that synthetic happiness is every bit as good as natural happiness. And that's according to Gilbert and to the scientific studies that he cited. So synthetic happiness changes your view of the world so that you can feel better about the world in which you find yourself. And you can control whether you desire natural or synthetic happiness. So you have to ask yourself and you have to decide, do you want to be constantly chasing the next thing that you want? The next thing that you think is going to make you happy? Whether that be something material like a house or a car or a new pair of shoes, who knows what. Whether that be a relationship with a romantic partner or friend or whatever, or promotion at work. Whatever that thing is that you're chasing, that you think is, oh, if only I got that, I would be happy. These are the things that give you natural happiness. So are you willing to stop chasing those? And then, would you rather let go of the desire to acquire more, live each day to your full potential, and find happiness in the fact that you did the very best you could with what you had every single day? So the choice is yours. And that really is the secret right there. That is the secret to happiness. But is happiness a virtue? I haven't really talked about how I arrived at the conclusion that I do think happiness is a virtue. And to come to that conclusion, I had to discover two other types of happiness that have been identified by psychologists. And I have no idea if I'm pronouncing these correctly or not, but they are hedonic happiness and eudaimonic happiness. So hedonic happiness, you've probably heard of hedonism, so you might be able to guess it. That kind of happiness is realized when you experience more pleasure and less pain. Whereas eudaimonic happiness is realized, and I'm going to quote positive psychology here. So eudaimonic happiness is realized when, or as it should say, let me back up. Eudaimonic happiness is realized as the result of the pursuit and attainment of life purpose, meaning, challenge, and personal growth. Happiness is based on reaching one's full potential and operating at full functioning. So, hedonic happiness is the type realized by the hippy dippy dingbats, the type that I had an aversion to, while eudaimonic happiness is the kind that I would call virtuous, and the kind of happiness I've been promoting through the expectation gaps all along without even knowing it, by promoting the idea to stop settling and start living, to realize your full potential. That is promoting the idea of happiness. Who knew? So, what's your next step? That's the last question we need to answer here. Now that you know the secret to happiness, which is choosing to create your own rather than chasing natural happiness, what are you going to do with that secret? Are you willing to stop chasing happiness, to let go of the desire to be happy? And then are you willing to instead focus on growth, personal growth, and fulfillment, knowing that you will find happiness along the way if you do that? If you answered yes, then don't forget to take advantage of a worksheet that I put together for you. You can find it in the narrative post. The worksheet is meant to help you go from inspiration to action, so that you don't just listen or watch this video, you actually do something with the information that you've gained here. And until next time, stay curious.